President Biden also was pushing back against Republican criticism of his more than $2 trillion infrastructure and jobs plan. Yesterday, the president warned against inaction, urging his critics to think beyond roads and bridges.
Debate is welcome. Compromise is inevitable. Changes are certain. We'll be open to good ideas and good faith negotiations. But here's what we won't be open to. We will not be open to doing nothing. Inaction simply is not an option. I've heard from my Republican friends say that many of them say it's too big. They say, why not focus on traditional infrastructure? Fix what we've already got, the roads and the highways that exist and the bridges. We are America. We don't just fix for today. We build for tomorrow. The idea of infrastructure has always evolved to meet the aspirations of the American people and their needs. And it's evolving again today. We need to start seeing infrastructure through its effect on the lives of working people in America. And by the way, I didn't hear any of our friends who were criticizing this plan say that the corporate tax cut, which added $2 trillion of the debt, the Trump tax cut, $1.9 trillion in debt, wasn't paid for. The vast majority of which went to the top 1% of the wage earners. I didn't hear anybody hollering in this recovery, the so-called, before I became president, this K-shaped recovery, where billionaires made $300 billion more during this period. Where's the outrage there? I'm not trying to punish anybody, but damn it, maybe it's because I come from a middle-class neighborhood. I'm sick and tired of ordinary people being fleeced.
There's that Scranton versus Fifth Avenue argument that worked so well for him during the campaign, Willie. But I love the line, and it really does. I think it really shows his viewpoint and everything that he's been doing so far in the administration. We're Americans. We don't just fix what we got. We plan for tomorrow. It's a pretty strong statement, a pretty strong argument to pull even more people in on this infrastructure plan.
Yeah, we had Secretary Buttigieg on the show yesterday, and yes, they want to go out and fix bridges and roads, to be clear, but also look to creating jobs in the future, green jobs in the future, clean energy jobs, building electric cars in America, things like that. So trying to look past what conventionally people have thought of as infrastructure, and in some cases maybe pushing the bounds of that. Yamiche, it was interesting to listen to President Biden and Commerce Secretary Raimondo yesterday both hint that they would be open to negotiation on the raising of the corporate tax rate to 28%. That's not something we had heard before, suggesting that perhaps maybe that's for Joe Manchin more than it is for Republicans who have already said they're not going to vote for this bill. Where do you see that playing out as they try to rope in the remaining Democrats who are still a little shaky on this?
Well, in some ways, Willie, as you said, they weren't really hinting at it. They were really openly saying, we are happy to try to figure out how to change this corporate tax rate so that we can get to a place where everyone agrees. And I agree with you, Willie, that idea is really felt like it was messaging to their own Democrats. The issue is, of course, yes, maybe they'll have to debate with Republicans about what's in the bill if they want to make it bipartisan. But before they can even do that, they have to get the Democratic caucus on the same page. And we've seen Senator Manchin signal that he's for a 25% corporate tax rate, not a 28% corporate tax rate. So you already see the White House and the Commerce Secretary trying to really signal that they're willing to come in some ways to the numbers that Joe Manchin seems to be more comfortable with. That being said, when you zoom out and look at what this infrastructure plan is and what they're describing it as, they're really talking about the scaffolding around which society functions and through which society functions. They're talking about wages. They're talking about clean water. They're talking about access to broadband. All of these things are really key to the way that Americans function. And Joe Biden is saying, President Biden is saying, we have to look at this in that way. Of course, Republicans vehemently disagree with him on that issue. They look at the $400 billion to home health care aid that will predominantly impact women of color, low-wage earners, Black women who are working in homes and health care, and saying, well, that's not part of infrastructure. We don't want that to be part of this bill. of course, President Biden is saying, actually, that is part of infrastructure. It's how people are getting paid. I think if we zoom out even more, all of this is connected to this idea that there is this pursuit of happiness that we in America talk about surviving and thriving in America. And the Biden administration officials tell me that means that you have to not only have access to the ballot box, which is what, of course, Georgia is and what you've been talking about this morning, but it also means that you have to be able to afford to put a roof over your head and afford to have clean water and afford to have access to good health.
You know, Nicole, this appears to be another Biden bill, another plan that does shift money back from the wealthiest Americans to middle-class Americans, working-class Americans, and actually, in a really dramatic way, shifts trends of the past 40 years. And it's so, I wouldn't say disconcerting. It's sneaking up, I think, on a lot of us because Joe Biden has such a moderate temperament. He was known throughout his career as sort of a moderate, pro-business, Delaware middle-class guy. Was never seen as a progressive champion. But the past couple of bills he's proposed, one that he's passed, really more dramatically moves money from the wealthiest corporations to working class Americans, more so than anything that's happened in 40 years.
Yes, I think we have to stop thinking about the desire to take care of most Americans, to take care of working class Americans as a radical agenda. And I think Joe Biden is showing that this is the America that we like to imagine that we are. One where if you work hard, you can actually afford to pay your bills. One where, we are the most unequal of the Western democracies. And the pandemic has only worsened that disparity, where so much of the wealth has gone to those who don't need anymore. And so little of our efforts of government has been around trying to bridge that gap and give a higher standard of living for all Americans. And I think what we've seen is that the party has been pushed left by years of really grassroots activism that we're saying, we are supporting Democratic candidates, and yet we're not seeing an agenda for working people that is bearing fruit from those, from that organizing. Joe Biden is listening to his base. He is listening not just to his base, but what the majority of Americans want. We know the majority of Americans are supportive of this infrastructure bill, that we understand the infrastructure is also human beings. You need childcare workers. You need those workers who are taking care of the people who will actually be building the infrastructure, who are watching the children of those who will be building the infrastructure. So it really is a comprehensive bill that I think represents what is the best of America and what American government can do for its citizens.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.